G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and today we're going to be looking at the shake-up that is happening in the Battle for Middle-earth strategy battle game. This is a very interesting one because, well, it's a game that's been close to my heart for many years. It's a game I think that's been consistently written quite well, basically since its inception. Even going back to the year 2000 and the original releases of The Lord of the Rings, it would have been 2001, I think, when it hit cinemas. This game was pretty good from the get-go and has consistently held up in quality for basically the duration of time. There's been a couple of changes to it to give it more strategic depth, which I think in many cases didn't work for me personally, but it didn't ruin the overall game experience. I just thought it was a step down from perhaps, the zenith, the peak. Things like different weapon profiles, so, swords have two different modes that you can use them in, axes have two different modes you can use them in, clubs have different modes you can use them in, etc, etc. It just added a lot more thought process and bookkeeping to it, and really it could have been kept more streamlined in my opinion, with the original single profile for each weapon. But that is neither here nor there, because that's not what we're here to talk about. What we are here to talk about is the incredible downsizing of the game that seems to be coming with the latest edition. Now, the last edition was not exactly... I don't think it really took anyone's breath away, let's be honest here, right? It existed, and people played it. And that's kind of all there was to note about it. There weren't a ton of releases for the system. They tidied up a couple of older kits, and we're only getting a refresh on the 22-year-old Rohirrim, I'm going to say Warriors of Rohan, just the basic infantry. That kit's 22 years old, and the only reason that one's getting an update is because there's a new Lord of the Rings mini-series based around Helm Hammerhand in that time period. If it wasn't for that, they wouldn't be getting touched. And this goes to show because they have not touched the High Elf range, the Númenórean range, or the Goblins. All three of those are much older. And they haven't touched the Gondorians, even though I would dare say, the Warriors of Gondor are more popular than the Warriors of Rohan on foot. But I digress. And apart from that, not a lot has been happening. We've got a couple of plastic character updates and a few things like that in the last few years, but really not much else. Well, what they're doing is they've decided that they're reviewing the different factions and they're trying to get rid of some of the range bloat. And normally I approve of this, especially in 40k and in Age of Sigmar. But Lord of the Rings is not that bloated. You see, the individual factions themselves do not have that many units. And the ones that do, we're talking factions like Minas Tirith. But Minas Tirith has a big bloated faction because it is a big bloated faction. It has all of the fiefdoms below it, but it also has a lot of characters within it. Many that are named in the books, and we see a lot of them in the movie. And there's so many different, we see Citadel Guard in the movie, we see Knights of Gondor in the movie, we see the Guard of the Fountain Court in the movies, we see the Warriors in the movies, we see the Rangers in the movies, etc., right? It's very bloated by default. Whereas something like the Goblins, we see some Goblin Warriors, some archers, some blokes with spears, a couple with swords, we see the Cave Troll. And we see the Balrog, and we hear the drums. That's kind of it for that faction. So, naturally, some factions are going to be more bloated than others. But they've decided they want to cut down on them. And it seems their key criteria is they want to boil down to particular errors from the movies and books. Therefore, a few characters, such as Brandaboras Took and Golfenball, who are mentioned in The Hobbit. Okay, Bilbo's talking about his famous ancestor who knocked the head clean off a goblin and called Golfenball, and it went down a hole and they invented the game of golf, right? That was the joke, as an example. But they also talk about Minas Tirith and how it is a big bloated army, and rather than removing an entire set from example, because the Knight of the White Tower, there was no such unit ever in the game. No such unit ever appeared in the movies or the books. Okay, well, if that's the criteria, that you're setting out, then you better be consistent. And of course, they're not. So we'll talk about that. So, most of these miniatures will be going off sale, and some have already been unavailable for a while, but they will still be receiving Legacy's profiles, so consigned to the graveyard. So people with existing collections can continue to enjoy using those miniatures in their games. Certain miniatures are being rolled into different profiles, while a few are being removed from the game. Additionally, some characters once had access to shields, horses, and so on, but we never sold a model with those options, which have now been removed from the game. So I dare say that things like the guard I found caught with shields, which is just an amazing clutch Gondor unit. You know, you had your strength 4, your defense 6 and 7s in like your Uruk-hai, which made Mordor and Isengard very strong. Gondor's answer to that was defense 7, guard I found caught with fight 4 and spears. Amazing, right? Especially if they have topped out courage because they're escorting character. Well, that'll probably be gone now, which is a shame. And I mean, Gondorian knights... Interesting point. They don't have shields in the movie. But the kits, the horse riders in the game do. But in the movie, when they go out for their charge with Faramir, no shields. Just thought I'd point that out. Alright, so miniatures removed from sale and entering legacies. Let's go. Golfin Ball, the Mahud King, the Mahud Tribesmaster, the Mahud Warrior, the Mahud Raider, Half Trolls, the Haradrim King, the Golden King, the Abrakan Merchant Guard, Watchers of Kana, Corsair Reavers, the Candish King, Candish Chariots, Candish Warriors, Candish Horsemen, and Candish Charioteer. That's pretty much the Canned faction. Almost, if not every single model in Canned. And that is most of the stuff that made the Haradrim work. Like Abrakan Merchant Card and Watchers of Kana were both pretty good. Corsair Reavers goings, like either or. The Mahud, it just was a fun, fleshed out little faction, right? You know, the guys that drive the Oliphants around in the movies, right? The Mumakil, the guys actually riding them with all the crazy war paint and stuff. Aemma Spear's one of them. Yeah, those guys, that's the Mahud faction. They're gone. So that's pretty much an entire faction or two gutted right there. Mordor is an interesting one. So the Ring Wraiths of Angmar, Fallen Realms, and the Lost Kingdoms. That is the named variants of the Ring Wraiths, okay? So the named variants were, the Corsair of Umbar, the Black Marshal, right? The Easterling, that kind of thing. I guess they have versions in The Hobbit, but like the rules in The Hobbit strategy battle game are awful because there's like 4 unique profiles and it's just like 2 get recycled, 2 get recycled, and 2 get recycled. It's weird and boring. And I liked the Ring Wraiths of Angmar, the Fallen Realms, and the Lost Kingdoms, and they had interesting designs, which I'll show you some of them in a second. All right. Some of the other characters getting rid of. Goroth and Zugdush. Fine. I'm fine with that. Morgul Stalkers, I'm fine with losing those. Kardush the Firecaller, okay. The Orc Tracker, I mean, half these units came out in the Siege of Gondor books, or the Battle of Pelennor Fields back in like 2003, 2004. So it's not like they're exactly, well fondly remembered. Same as Ruz Gash, War Leader of the North, and Muzgur, Orc Shaman. Fine. But the Black Guard of Barad-dûr, they were a really strong warrior unit. We're talking Uruk-hai armoured up to the max. Losing them is a bit of a shame, and they also provided good painting opportunities. They had these big shields with a big red Mordor eye on them. There might be some of them in the going out of business section. But the Great Beast of Gorgoroth, that one's a shame to lose because that's this thing here that's actually in the article. And these are mentioned several times, and in the extended cut you do see them towing Grond, the giant battering ram. So, yeah, a bit of a shame to lose those ones, I think. The miniatures being renamed or repackaged. So the Morgul Knights becoming Black Numenorian Knights, fine with that. So they're going from sorcery, that's what Morgul means, sorcery knights, to Black Numenorians, which is probably more appropriate. And the Witch King of Angmar being repackaged. Okay, fine. But miniatures removed from the game. Shagrat War Leader. That's an interesting one because he was one of the most popular characters for a long time in the game system. Very, very strong character because you're talking alerts level Uruk-hai, strong defense, high fight value, very powerful combat character, and not limited by the will issues that, say, the Witch King and the ring wraiths have. They have issues with will, okay, where when they fight in combats, they're losing will, they lose their will, they're removed from the game. Shagrat is able to hang around and, he can fight your AMA level characters, could almost square off against a Boromir or an Aragorn, but not quite. But he's in that category, right? He's like halfway between them. So losing him is a big hit to the melee punch of the Mordor forces. It's forcing the Mordor to rely on things like Uruk-hai captains and, Shagrat in his non-war leader form. And I dare say, like, the ring wraiths themselves as frontline combatants, which is really not what they're best at. So probably trolls will become their clutch. Gundabad and Dol Guldur, they're losing the Castellans of Dol Guldur. Kind of a shame, they're like pseudo ring wraiths. Again, cool painting opportunity, but there's only 2 kind of okay-ish sculpts for them. And the Spider Queen. So losing the Spider Queen kind of sucks. She was pretty useful. But I guess they want to move more towards the Hobbit movies, Mirkwood Spiders style range. Mirkwood themselves, losing Thranduil on horse. I guess they want to sell you the Thranduil on the giant stag. I'm fine with this change. Isengard. So, Theodan Wolfsbane, Frida Tallspear, Gorwolf Ironsking, and the Dunlending Range, Malhur, Varasku, and the Feral Uruk-hai. I always liked the Feral Uruk-hai. I thought they were just a neat idea that, like, there's just these crazies that, they were kind of like semi-Uruk-hai berserkers. I don't know, they just added a little bit of something to the game I thought was fun. And they worked better with with your Uruk-hai sort of the Lurtz scout formations, rather than like the Uruk-hai berserkers that belong more in the Helm's Deep battle. So, but yeah, the Dunlending range is not even that old of a range, so losing all of those, I think, is a bit of a, okay, what's going on here type thing. And Malhur and Vrasku, yeah, they were always going to go because they're named. Yeah, I think Malhur gets his name mentioned once in like the Two Towers. It's like a throwaway line in the book, and obviously is it in the film either, so no presence, gone. Grimmer Wormtongue on horse, also removed, although we do see him on horseback a couple of times. Miniatures renamed or repackaged, the Oathmaker being sold separately. Okay. Alright, Minas Tirith, the Knight of the White Tower removed. Fine. Angmor and Mablung, though, they are named repeatedly in the books, and they do pop up as background characters in the movies. These guys are Rangers of Gondor. So, very, very weird that they'd be getting kicked out to me. Kirion, yeah, I'm fine with his removal. I was never a big fan of the miniature anyway, having like the leather breastplate instead of the typical Gondorian breastplate was always very weird to me. That he's got metal armor on his arms and legs, but not on his chest. I always thought it was a very, very weird touch. And he had lighter armor to represent that. The Men-at-Arms of Dol Amroth, yeah, they kind of needed those. Because you're talking pike-armed, and they look great. I thought they were gorgeous miniatures. I actually have quite a few of them. So now that's one that actually does directly affect me, damn it. And getting renamed and repackaged, the Minas Tirith commanders are losing the Knight of the White Tower from the box, and Beregond is being sold separately. I'm wondering if the box is going to get cheaper. Alright, Misty Mountains. So, Grobolg. This is one of the Goblin Kings. Gone. Ashrak, Shaman, basically. Gone. Dweller in the Dark. Gone. That's the sort of miniature Balrog thing, I believe it is. The Moria Black Shield Captain, Shaman, Drummers and Warriors. Gone. They were the sort of heaviest warriors that Moria Goblins had. And the Warg Marauder, which is sort of a Warg with 3 riders on it. Gone. And being renamed and repackaged are Durburs and Durzag. So we've got the other Goblin King So that range has lost a lot of its best goblins, fighters especially. The Black Shields are stronger than the regular goblins. So losing those, and especially losing the Wild Marauder, which was a fast, useful unit, yeah, that hurts them a lot. And Grobolg and Ashrak were handy characters. All right, Elven Kingdoms, moving Eladan unarmored, Elrahir unarmored, and Glorfindel unarmored. I get why keeping the armored versions, because they look so cool, but the unarmored ones, if you want to play any of the stories around them, like, if anyone remembers back to the olden times, back to the days of when they first released the Arnor factions, back in, like, I'm going to say 2005-ish, maybe 2006, when they were running those expansions, you could play a lot of campaigns centered around, like, the Sons of Elrond and Aragorn, like, hunting around and killing orcs and trolls and, chasing away the ring wraiths and trying to rescue Aragorn and the hobbits and all those kind of adventures that happen into intervening years between the Hobbit film and the Lord of the Rings film, or books, whichever way you want to look at it. And these guys gave you the chance to play those particular missions, those battles, right? Because these guys aren't walking around the world, like, when they're out acting as rangers and hunting, wearing full plate armor, Like, it's just, you're losing a bit of the fun, the bit of the, a bit of the world building that is so fun about the Lord of the Rings, being able to recreate those campaigns and missions. You're losing a bit of that, which I think kind of sucks. Now, losing Eristor, the Stormcaller, and Gildor Ingorian, yeah, I'm not a big fan of removing those, because it's good to have those lesser level characters. You shouldn't just be going from Elf Captain to Elrond Gil-galad. It is good to have the lesser characters. And the Elrond unarmored profile is also being removed. Again, loss of fun. Alright, for Rohan, Grimbold and Helmingas command. Grimbold's an interesting choice, because Grimbold is in the books quite heavily. Grimbold from Grimslade, and he actually pops up in the Lord of the Rings movie. Now, he is referenced, and Theoden calls out to him, what would it be? It would be at the charge of the Rohirrim at Minas Tirith. He actually says, Grimbold, take your company right after you pass the walls. And you see him, and he responds to, acknowledges Theoden, but he doesn't have any talking lines in the movie. You don't get, many close-ups of him. Therefore, I guess when they say characters that are prominent in the films, they or were in the books and films, they kind of just shrug their shoulders at Grimbold. Eorl the Young, Erkenbrand's another one from the Grimbold sort of thing, popular in the books. Eorl the Young, though, the founder of Rohan, and yeah, okay. The Sons of Eorl, they're not actually the Sons of Eorl, they're just the name of the sort of Rohan unit. But losing those, and especially the Outriders and the Sons of Eorl were both clutch units for Rohan for a long time. Yeah, losing both of those, that sucks for them. And the Rohan commanders losing the King's Huntsman, being repackaged. Dwarven Holds losing Murin and Dra, fine, never cared for them. Balin the Dwarf High King of Moria, who is also just a resculpt of King Dain, the Lord of the Rings version, years before the Hobbit films came out, and looks nothing like Balin or Dain. Yeah, okay, I can stand losing the model, but at least give us the Balin out of the Hobbit in his place. Foy Stonehand, yeah, he was an interesting character. King's Champion was cool as well, and the Shield Bearers were too, so, I don't know, just a gutting of that range, but they don't seem to like the Dwarfen range anyway. They want to slowly squat and remove that range, I think, in favour of just doing the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit film version of the dwarves. So obviously the Iron Hills dwarves and the other, I guess the prologue Erebor dwarves. I think that's what they want to be more in favour of, as opposed to, the Dwarf Rangers, the Dwarf Warriors, the Khazad Guard, that kind of thing. Kings of Men, renamed, repackaged, Rangers of the North and Dunedain, fine. So all my factions are pretty good. Brandenbrass Took being removed from the Free People's range, and Birchseed is the new name for Quickbeam. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these miniatures quickly. So the Marhood Raiders up on the top right, just anything Marhood, anything Haradrim gutted. Black Shields, I'd never liked the cloaks on them, but the Black Shields themselves were a pretty useful set of units. Ashrak and Durzag, the Goblin Shamans, again, useful to the Goblin range. So they're taking Durzag and Durburs and putting them together, and they're getting rid of Grobolg and Ashrak. So doing a bit of a mix-up between these two kits. The Gorbag and Shagrat. So War Leader is the one in the back with the shield. That's the really good version. They're getting rid of him. So, yay. The Rohan Outriders, again, really good unit. Sucks for them. Dunlendings. These are the white metal ones. They've been around for a long time. Losing those isn't great. I think get Grimbold and the Helmingas. Grimbold's an actual character, well named, well liked. Losing him is actually crap. Ring Race of the Fallen Realms. If you are a fan of the 9, get them while you can. Putting this much stuff, last chance to buy it at once, 39 products, and a couple of books, I guess, that's pretty rough. But look, these guys have so much character, the Ring Wraiths. It's like, what did they do for all that time that Sauron wasn't around? Many of them established kingdoms or influence over kingdoms in of themselves. Awesome, cool. Let us explore that, have fun with that. Yeah, losing them sucks. What else? They're the old warriors of Rohan, so yep, fine. I'm not sure why the Gundabad Orcs and Orc Captain are in the last chance to buy range, because they're not going out of production. Stupid that they're resin and not plastic, but anyway. Candish units, they're all gone. I'm not sure again why the Morinon Orc Commanders and Orc Commanders down here. The Dwarf Commanders, they're losing that Shield Bearer boy in the back. The Rohan Commanders, they're losing the King's Huntsman out of there. Dweller in the Dark was like a mini Balrog, so that's gone. The Marauder, gone. The Gondorian Commanders, so the Knight of the White Tower, the guy out the front there, who I thought was a really good stand-in for a King of Men for Gondor. To represent a King of Man in any of the Middle Ages, between, the Last Alliance and the decline of Gondor. That was a good model to represent that. So losing him sucks in that regard. But for all of those out there who are disappointed that they're losing, whole ranges and identities from the game, and a bunch of stuff is no longer in last chance to buy that it says it would be. For example, ring rates wise, because what have we got? We've got 3 of the 9, and then none of the rest. Okay, missing 6 of them. But thank God, team. Thank God that we get to keep Gandalf's cart. It's an important character. No, what's something worse that we get to keep? Well, the Master of Lake Town and Elfrid, everyone's favourite characters from the Hobbit films. Glad we're keeping those. What else can we keep from the Hobbit films? Brand and Bard 2 of Dale. Yeah, cool. Obviously, of course, Radagast and his rabbit sled. That's a must-have. What about Bard's family or Hilda and Percy? What about Butterbur? It's just strange to me that they would get rid of so many interesting characters or gut factions and yet keep that shit. It's an expert kit, by the way. Expert kit. Yeah. I don't know. Some interesting stuff happening. I don't think it's going to be good for the health of the game system. You're removing a bunch of... you're removing whole factions, like the Easterling... so the Candish faction being removed as a whole. I mean, it's less for the company to support, condensing the range and such, sure, but you're just gutting the wonderful universe of that game system. I guess they're just looking at sales and going, these don't sell great, let's just piss them off. It's not worth the effort of stocking them. I mean, that's pragmatic enough from a company standpoint, but you're not trying to sell the Lord of the Rings based on pragmatism. The game is for a 20-year-old set of films. Let's be honest. The characters that you're electing to keep kind of suck in some cases, like Hilda and Percy. And the ones you're electing to get rid of are often more interesting. So, not necessarily the kits I would have got rid of. Maybe if there's enough interest, I would do a video on what kits I would have got rid of for the Lord of the Rings range, or especially the kits that I would love to update for the Lord of the Rings range. And primarily, I think the Last Alliance era. Geez, that's just screaming for a new Sauron miniature, a new Elendil, a new Gil-galad, a new Isildur. The Elrond they've got is perfect now, the new Elrond sculpt. I'd be down with that, for sure. Obviously, the Warriors of Numenor and the High Elf Warriors, and of course the Orcs themselves, the Orcs and Goblins. Man, you could have so much fun with that. What a great expansion that would be. And it's something they already, I'm pretty sure, have the rights to. And they could actually give us Anarion, Isildur's brother, who dies during the Siege of Barad-dûr. They could actually give us him, or some of Isildur's sons, They could give us Thranduil's father, Odohar, I think it is. I don't know. There's some fun things that we could do with The Last Alliance. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm back with the Outer Circle. This is some Lord of the Rings stuff. I do have a review for a 3D printer coming soon, and I want to talk about Trench Crusade at some point as well. So keep an ear out for that. I'll catch you all in the next video. See you then.